Bol Bol is going to be an enigma to NBA teams because there are some incredible attributes that he has.
He is so long, it's unbelievable.
For his size, he does some things that are uncommon.
The question is the motor and how hard he's going to play all the time.
Yeah, a unique talent. You mentioned his skill. He's over 7 feet tall, but he barely weighs 205 pounds.
While nowadays you might think of Bol Bol as being, a meme, but back in 2018 he was a legit top 5 prospect in the world. And he was one of the most popular players too, not just because of his unique name, but he's the son of MacLeod Bol, the tallest player in NBA history. His father was one of a kind, a very lanky player listed at 7'7" but just 200 pounds. MacLeod recorded more blocks than points throughout his career. Bol Bol was different, though. While his father might have been seen as a gimmick, Bol Bol was a legitimate prospect since high school, displaying a set of skills rarely seen from a player of his height. As a teenager, some called him, quote, a taller Kevin Durant. And by 2018, he was ranked the 4th best prospect in the country. Not even a year later, his stock plummeted, and his NBA career has gone nowhere. What went wrong? How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's get started. Now, one thing to note is that prior to his arrival at Oregon, Bol Bol attended 4 different high schools. He basically transferred to a different school after every year, and his last transfer to Findlay Prep in Nevada was seen mostly as a recruiting move. In fact, all of his transfers were. Coaches from different schools heavily recruited Bol, and whether or not there were benefits involved, you can take a guess. Either way, it shows how much of a highly desirable player he truly was. Bol received offers from many prestigious schools, and all of them made a strong pitch for why he'd benefit from their programs. Kansas, USC, Arizona, Kentucky, UCLA, but ultimately he chose to go to Oregon. Reportedly, he had a tough time choosing between Oregon and Kentucky. He narrowed it down to those 2 schools. But the reason he chose Oregon was quite a funny story, actually. According to Bol, he stated, "During my official visit, we got to go into a room someone said was known as the Phil Knight Room. It was this special room where they showcase all the new Oregon gear Nike is working on. What I saw in there blew me away. Shoes lined up on chairs, custom Oregon colorway Jordans, like 13 different jersey combinations, Nike stuff that hasn't come out yet. Those Jordan 4 Oregon retros that LeBron was wearing recently, they had those in there, rare ones. I was going crazy in there, man. For a kid obsessed with shoes, that was like heaven." Hey, whatever pitch works, right? Also, there was another thing. In the season before, Oregon reached the Final Four for the first time since 1939. At this point, they already had a stacked list of committed players, and Bol would be the final piece to their squad. At least, he was supposed to be. While he had a dominant high school career, the hesitancy around Bol's draft position started to surface, even before going to college. For a guy who was ranked as the number 4 prospect and the number 1 center of all incoming freshmen, his main knock was his lack of drive. In high school, he sometimes randomly would not show up to practice, and even missed a few games due to inexcused absences. There was this time when he tried to represent Team USA for the FIBA Under-19 World Cup. The team was coached by Kentucky's John Calipari, and he actually cut Bol Bol from the roster at the last moment. Some speculated it was because he held a grudge against Bol for choosing to go to Oregon instead of Kentucky. But there was also speculation that Bol was slacking off, and basically didn't give much effort in the tryouts. As time went by, people slowly started to realize it was the latter. It's so rare to see a top 5 prospect not even make the World Cup squad, so that was a red flag. Another issue was his questionable skill set for a big man. Perhaps he has shown he's good at a lot of things, skills that most big men can only dream of having. But what niche will he fill in the NBA? A lot of teams were scared to take him because he didn't play like a typical center. In theory, a guy who's 7'2" who can shoot and dribble seems otherworldly. But in practice, teams can never figure out what position to put these guys in, or where to put them on defense. Bol was very weak and lanky, so there were concerns of him struggling to defend actual big men. He had the skills of a wing player, sort of, but he wasn't fast enough to keep up with most wing players either. He's one of those guys who theoretically has the potential to be a future superstar. We've seen plenty of tall, lanky dudes get compared to guys like Kevin Durant or Dirk Nowitzki when they were younger, but very rarely does anyone actually pan out to be like them. In most cases, they flame out of the league pretty quickly, because if their skills don't translate, then they can't find a role. Some scouts were scared that Bol would fall down the same path. Anyway, he attended Oregon and actually had a fantastic start to his freshman season. After appearing in just 9 games for the Ducks, Bol injured his foot. Those 9 games were the only college games he'd ever play, as he declared for the draft after his freshman year. But in those 9 games, Bol was absolutely fantastic. He put up ridiculous numbers and shot the ball extremely well from everywhere, even from 3. He had a 52% three-point percentage in that small sample size. Defensively, he looked dominant, as quick and agile as he looked in high school. Except this time, it was against college players and he still looked so good. For a short time, he was still considered a top prospect, and those doubts disappeared. Scouts projected him to be the 3rd pick of the draft behind RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson. But after that foot injury, that was the killer. That caused his draft stock to fall off a cliff. Teams didn't want to take the risk anymore. They were scared his foot problems were a bigger deal than previously anticipated. Plus, we all know that big men plus foot problems equals not good results. It might come back to bite him later. Because of this, Bol dropped a staggering 40 spots in the draft. The dude went from being almost a guaranteed top 10 pick a few months prior to falling to the middle of the 2nd round. His drop was due to a combination of factors I mentioned earlier, his injury being the biggest one, but there were also concerns of what position he could play in the NBA, plus his lack of motivation and all that. With the 44th pick of the draft, the Miami Heat selected him, and his draft rights were immediately traded to the Nuggets. Now, nobody expected him to fall this far. So at the 44th pick, Bol was now considered the steal of the draft, funny enough. So how has he been since then? Well, his career has been off to a slow, shaky start. It didn't help that his rookie season was the same year the NBA season got suspended because of the pandemic. Bol spent most of his time in the G League and didn't actually make his NBA debut until the bubble. Even then, he still didn't get much playing time, and he didn't get much playing time his 2nd season either, as he'd only check into the game during garbage time. Denver was in position to contend for the playoffs, and they already had enough young guys on the roster to develop, so Bol was not a priority. Eventually, the Nuggets tried to trade him, but that's when another issue came up. Bol was supposed to be traded to Detroit, but he failed the physical fitness exam. Apparently, he was moving a lot slower, a lot more sluggish, and later on, it was discovered he needed surgery on his right foot. It bothered him for a while, but nobody knew about it. Remember earlier how I mentioned his foot problems might come back to bite him? For a guy as young as him to suffer numerous foot injuries this early, the future is looking bleak. While he didn't play in many meaningful NBA games, when he did play, Bol's weaknesses were quite obvious. He's tall and lanky, but he's also uncoordinated. There are times when he tries to drive to the basket from the perimeter, and he gets stopped, forced to pass it out, and he just looks awkward doing it. It also doesn't help that he has no semblance of a post-game whatsoever, nor the strength to back down any decent-sized big man. He's been relegated to being just a guy who runs the floor and rolls to the rim occasionally when he's open, sometimes even standing in the corner to stretch the floor, which is a waste of his perceived talent. Defensively, he can jump, but he lacks the speed to keep up with any competent offensive player. There were comparisons between him and Mo Bamba when he first came into the NBA. He'll be lucky if he ever becomes as good as Bamba. With the trade to Detroit canceled, the Nuggets found another deal that sent him to Orlando. We'll have to wait and see how he recovers from foot surgery. But from what we've seen so far, he won't be in the NBA for too much longer. It's a sad, sad story for a guy who was once thought to be in the same league as Zion Williamson or Ja Morant or RJ Barrett. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on Bol Bol. Do you foresee him turning his career around? Or do you see him falling out of the league in a few short years? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.